The tale starts with a man who usually stays alone in his house, living a secluded life typical of a person who avoids socializing. Without any close friendships, he mostly spends his time playing games. However, one day he decides to break away from his usual routine, stepping outside to get some fresh air and stretch his legs. While outdoors, he reflects on how he manages to support himself with the money he saved after quitting his job. Despite the need to earn money, he has no plans of finding a new job. The busy town with its group of people and office workers in suits left him feeling uneasy, as though he were involved in something unfair. While walking, he suddenly noticed a little girl playfully strolling along the edge of a bridge. Unfortunately, a huge truck passed by, frightening the girl and causing her to slip and fall into the river. At first, the man thought about whether he should help her, because he knew he might also die if he did. This made him pause for a moment, but he later decided to rescue her. He reasoned that even if he didn't make it, nobody would feel sad about his absence, and so he courageously jumped into the river after the girl. Luckily, he managed to save her, but unfortunately, he lost his own life in the river. After that, he felt like he was walking around in an incredibly long dream. Suddenly, he found himself being born into a strange world. At first, he couldn't understand what people were saying, and even worse, he couldn't speak. As time went by, he figured out what was going on. He realized he wasn't the same person as before. Somehow, he had been reborn as a baby in a different place. He came to the realization that the woman constantly feeding him was his new mother, and the man always beside him was his new father. As an infant, he pondered whether this scenario was a universal reality, with everyone retaining memories from their previous lives at birth, only to gradually forget them as they grew older. He also observed that apart from the shape of their ears, his new parents resembled typical humans, despite their non-modern lifestyle. He found himself curious about their daily activities and wondered about the specifics of what they do. As time passed, he began to assume that the house was situated in a remote countryside. With no visitors around, all he could hear were the cries of wildlife. He started to wonder what the outside world looked like. After a year swiftly passed, his new life was filled with opportunities to learn and accomplish new things. His new parents taught him their language by reading him a story, and eventually he progressed to understand it. At that moment, he realized that the people surrounding him were different from those in his previous life. There was this feeling of joy he experienced being with his new family. So he wondered if this feeling could be love. 3 years have quickly passed since he was reborn in a new world. He's called Yuri now, with the last name Ho. Unlike what he thought about memories fading with age, Yuri's memories from his past life stuck around, and it looks like he's going to keep living in his new body. One day, his dad, Luke Ho, comes up to him, saying there's a place he wants to show Yuri. Yuri asks his dad where they're going, and his dad says they'll find out when they get there. His dad puts him on a kakedori, a large ostrich-like bird that can run as fast as a horse, and they both ride it on their journey. It turns out that Luke decided to take Yuri to his beautiful Lake Kakedori farmland. Luke asks Yuri if he knows why he built the farmland, and Yuri, surprised that his dad has a farmland, asks if his dad built it by himself. Luke replies that he built every single bit of it. Luke then asks Yuri to answer his first question. In response, Yuri wonders if Luke is asking because the animals don't bother the nearby residents. Yuri's father, a bit confused but amused by this unusual response, laughs, and explains that they chose the area for the farm because birds don't thrive well in windy lands. The mountains around the farm block the wind, preventing it from negatively affecting the birds. Yuri asks if Luke handles the lake on his own, and Luke responds that he has workers, taking him inside the kakedori stable. Yuri sees the other workers feeding the kakedoris. Luke explains that the kakedoris are mainly fed a mix of hay, millet nuts, beans, and etc. While the kakedoris also graze, they hunt rabbits. However, Luke points out that once kakedoris develop a taste for meat, they become aggressive. Therefore, as rearers, they ensure that kakedoris do not eat meat beforehand. Luke also tells Yuri that some customers specifically like and order a violent kakedori. In those situations, they give these kakedori a mouse. Soldiers often request these violent kakedoris because when well trained, they can effectively fight enemies with their powerful kicks. Realizing that the kakedori can be a deadly creature, Yuri decides that even if he rides one in the future, he would rather avoid the aggressive ones. He concludes that it's best to study the animals closely, considering he might inherit the responsibility from his father someday. Luke asks Yuri to check out something cool and takes him to a barn. Inside, Yuri is surprised to see a huge black bird flying around, even bigger than a kakedori. Luke shares that he personally cares for the bird, calling it the King Eagle. Yuri is amazed, wondering how such an incredible creature even exists. Luke shares with Yuri that the creature is smart, and once it gets used to Yuri, it'll become friendly, allowing him to ride it. Yuri is confused that his father expects him at his age to ride such a bird. Then, his father recalls a story about a heavenly knight riding a bird. emphasizing that it's tradition in the Ho family for a 3-year-old to ride the King Eagle. Playfully boasting, Luke claims the title of the #1 King Eagle rider. Afterward, Luke securely fastens Yuri to himself, and they embark on a ride on the King Eagle. Wearing flight outfits and protective spectacles for their eyes, they soar through the skies. As Yuri experiences the journey with his father, he discovers that the scenery is even more breathtaking than when observed through the small window of an airplane. As they glide through the sky on the bird, Luke tells Yuri that not everyone can ride the King Eagle, especially those scared of heights. He wanted to check if Yuri was okay with being up high. Seeing Yuri's relaxed reaction, Luke notices that Yuri is not bothered by the height. In that moment, Yuri finds out he's not afraid of heights at all. Instead, he's just really excited to enjoy experiences like this every day. When they finally touch down the eagle on the ground, Yuri has a hard time getting off, but his dad tells him to jump, assuring he'll catch him. Believing in his dad, Yuri jumps, and his dad keeps his word by catching him. Yuri's mom, Suzuya, comes out to say hi, making Yuri happy. With smiles, he figures out that he really wants to enjoy life in this new world with his new family. On Yuri's 4th birthday, he asks his parents for a book to use as a diary, so he could write down his thoughts. Luke inquires about Yuri's reading and writing abilities, and Suzuya replies they're great, and she has nothing more to teach him. Yuri's mom is from a farming family and didn't go to school. She learned to read and write from Luke. Even though Yuri finds it challenging to read complex books, he can read signs and boards. Yuri values the memories, skills, and knowledge from his past life in Japan, and he wishes to document everything before those memories fade away. Yuri pleads with his father even more, and vows to never ask for a birthday present again. His mother attempts to convince his father to purchase the diary for Yuri, emphasizing that it's a rare request from him, and because he assists with his work. However, Luke reveals that it costs 4,000 to 5,000 rug for one, causing a sudden change in his mother's facial expression. While Yuri doesn't fully grasp the value of the world's currency, he can see from his mother's expression that it's quite expensive. In this world, books are crafted from animal skin, so it wouldn't be unusual for one to cost 4 to 5 million yen in Japanese currency. Yuri is aware that his father is from the royal family, but his dad left and is now working on the farm to support their household. After some persuasion, Luke agrees to buy the book for Yuri, but asks him to promise to prioritize helping his mother and with the farm work. Later that day at the farm, Luke informs Yuri that they will both be heading to the Shibuyaku capital, located in the Sharuta Empire where they currently live. Luke mentions that their journey there will be an excellent opportunity to explore and experience the capital. In the city, Luke introduces Yuri to his friend Sir Gala. Sir Gala is impressed by Yuri's polite greeting, and tells Luke he hasn't met such well-behaved kids since the princess. Gala mentions that his own 4-year-old son is quite different. While they talk, Sir Gala suddenly hears that Princess Carol is nearby. He becomes nervous, wondering why she would visit him so early. Feeling the tension, Luke tries to leave quietly, but Sir Gala insists he stays longer, using the excuse that he hasn't received his receipt. He tells Luke that he gets it if Luke doesn't want to hang out with the princess, but meeting her now might mean Luke will visit her more later. Princess Carol shows up and everyone politely lowers their head. When she gets to them, she says they can raise their heads. She introduces herself as Carol Fulchartris, and asks Luke who he is. He responds by introducing himself as Luke Ho. Luke is happy to meet her, and she praises him for being a great knight in performances, but Luke points out he lost to Sir Gala. Yuri, who's listening, starts wondering what exactly a knight's performance involves. Carol shifts her attention to the King Eagle, and mentions to Luke that she heard he raises outstanding eagles. Pointing at the King Eagle, she asks about its name. Luke responds that he hasn't named it yet, and suggests it would be an honor if she could name it. Intrigued, Carol asks if she can fly with the eagle. However, Luke explains they've just covered a long distance, so it's best for the eagle to rest its wings for the day. This leaves Carol feeling sad and disappointed. Sir Gala steps in to lighten the mood, suggesting they can use this time to share information about riding the eagle. Carol's enthusiasm returns, and she eagerly asks how she can ride it. Luke advises her to first build a close relationship with the eagle, treating it like a trusted friend. He assures her that if she approaches it this way, the eagle is likely to respond positively. Luke emphasizes the importance of avoiding any gloomy or hostile behavior towards the eagle. Enthusiastically, she reaches for the reins, signaling to Luke that she would like to take control. Glancing at Sir Gala, who gives a nod of approval, Luke hesitantly hands the reins over to Carol. She happily thanks him for it. Later in the day, as Luke and Yuri stroll around the market looking for things to buy, Yuri asks Luke about Sir Gala. Luke explains that Sir Gala was his buddy when he attended the Knights Institute. He then tells Yuri that one day Yuri will join there as well. Yuri says he's sure he would quit midway, but his father assures him that he would be fine. When they reach the bookstore, Luke shows Yuri a set of notebooks. Instead, Yuri asks the storekeeper if he can check their contents, and the storekeeper agrees. The storekeeper is surprised when Luke informs her that he's purchasing the notebook for Yuri. Luke then tries to clarify that Yuri has a keen interest in things like notebooks, memos, and similar items. The storekeeper begins to feel emotional, recalling the last words her father shared with her when she was young. She expresses regret for forgetting many memories, but believes buying the notebook would be great for Luke. In case he passes away one day, it would leave something for Yuri to remember him by. As they chat further, Yuri eventually decides on which book he wants. The storekeeper, seeing him as a knowledgeable customer, offers him a discounted price. After discussing the cost, Luke also decides to purchase an ink. Later, Luke shows Yuri the kingdom's kakedori stable, making Yuri wonder if they can borrow a bird. However, his father explains that borrowing or renting a kakedori is not allowed unless it's a national affair. He mentions that people usually choose a carriage or caravan and rent a horse at a high cost. Since the distance is too far for both of them to walk, they need to change their mode of transportation and spend a night in one of the nearby towns. He advises Yuri to hold on to his belongings tightly. That night at a cozy inn, Luke and Yuri share a meal, and Yuri especially enjoys the food. Luke compliments him for doing well and asks if the long journey has left him exhausted. He also mentions that unlike the kingdom's eagle, they'll need to take a different route on their way back. Yuri then shares an observation with his father, noting that when they were flying on the King Eagle, it felt like they were south of the town Janam, and he saw the cliff near the town. Luke praises Yuri's sharp observational skills, and Yuri expresses his sadness about why two adults can't fly on one King Eagle. Luke clarifies that it's not that the eagle can't carry two adults, but it's risky. Even if they manage to stay up for a bit, there's a high chance of crashing. Yuri tells Luke that he heard a tale about someone riding with two women, but Luke dismisses it as a mere story. He cautions Yuri that some students imitate such tales due to admiration, but he advises against trying it. Curious, Yuri asks his father about the blonde girl they saw earlier. Luke clarifies that she is the daughter of Queen Shimone, and despite having a younger sister, she is likely to become the next queen. Yuri tries to say something, but his father interrupts, asking if he's in love with the princess. His father also says the royal family is nothing but trouble. Yuri is surprised by his father's response and says he's okay with someone normal like his mother. He also asks his father to share how he got along with his mother. Later that night, Yuri sits alone with the notebook he bought and decides to start writing down all of his knowledge from his previous world. 3 additional years have gone by, and now on his 7th birthday, Yuri confidently takes a solo ride on the kakedori, showcasing his newfound riding skills. Upon returning home, he spots a kingdom-stabled kakedori at their doorstep. Curious, he overhears his father shouting at someone to leave their home, and decides to peek through the window to find out why. He notices there's a visitor at their house, and they're talking about a letter. From what Yuri can overhear, his father's explaining to the messenger that he left the war front years ago, and has the right not to join even if war does erupt. The messenger pleads with him, mentioning that Mr. Gok, the head of their family, insists he must participate. This alarms and piques Yuri's curiosity, especially when he hears the word war. One fine morning, Yuri heads to his dad's kakedori farm. He asks one of his dad's workers if the bird is ready for him to take out. The worker replies positively, mentioning he was just about to let all the birds out. The worker then wonders if Yuri is tired, but Yuri says no because he has to do his best, especially since he's going to the main household. Later, Yuri and his mom ride a kakedori, with the other kakedoris following behind. He checks with his mom if she's okay behind him, and she assures him she is. She notes that he has improved at riding kakedoris, and even the ones behind are quietly following his lead. Yuri explains that since it's his second time riding without his dad's help, he has to be careful and ride cautiously. Suzuya then lets him know that they're almost at Karakumo town, and asks if he's feeling jittery. He admits he's a bit jittery because it's his first time going to the main household, and he was called for the ceremony. Yuri also mentions feeling glad that his father turned down the army recruitment request. Suzuya agrees, mentioning how Luke prefers caring for living things over fighting, though he got a bit grouchy after a visit from someone in the main household. Yuri takes a moment to think about the war he overheard his father discussing. Actually, Yuri's country, the Cialta Kingdom, has settled in the peninsula located next to the Kiruhina Kingdom. Interestingly, even though the people in the Kiruhina Kingdom share the same ethnicity as the Cian people, they prefer to call themselves Kiruhina people to show a distinction. Unfortunately, due to a war, a spreading fire is nearing the Kiruhina Kingdom on the peninsula. The Cian people are used to cold weather because they've historically lived in the northern part of the continent. In the past, the whole northern continent used to be a big empire called the Great Empire of Shantil, ruled by queens from one generation to another. However, around 900 years ago, the empire was destroyed in a war against another group, the Kurans, and after a long battle, it got divided into different nations. The only countries left are Cialta and Kiruhina. When the Kuran army comes close to Kiruhina, Cialta sends help, led by Luke's father, who's a knight from the Ho family. Luke's brother Gok Ho, who's now the head of the Ho family, joined the war when it started again. Even though Luke didn't want to be in the war, he had to show up at the ceremony for the departing warriors because of his position. Yuri is relieved that his uncle understands people, as he really doesn't want to wave goodbye to his father heading off to war. After a bit, Yuri and his mom finally arrive at Karakumo, the Ho family's base. As they confidently ride in, people around them give them odd looks. Yuri thinks it's because it's unusual to see a kid and a woman ride on a kakedori bird, which is typically ridden by knights. He figures it's normal for people to find it strange. When they reach the main household gate, a guard asks who they are. Yuri gets off his kakedori and tells the guard that he's Luke Ho's son. The guard doesn't seem to know who Luke Ho is, taking a moment to think. Suddenly, a maid hurries out yelling Yuri's mother's name. She tells Suzuya that everyone is waiting for them and asks them to follow her. Inside, Yuri is impressed by the warriors. Lord Gok comes out to welcome them, expressing his happiness for their arrival. Suzuya bows and greets him, saying it's been a while since they last met. Gok laughs and playfully tells Suzuya to not be overly formal because after all, they're cousins. He then asks about Luke, and Suzuya mentions that Luke will be a bit delayed as he's bringing the offering hawk. Gok says he can't accept a gift from someone who made their wife handle the bird's reins. In response, Suzuya quickly places Yuri in front and explains that it was him who rode the bird all the way there. Curious, Gok turns to Yuri, confirming his name. After Yuri affirms, Gok asks Suzuya if Yuri is skilled with the kakedori. Suzuya happily confirms that he is. Gok, intrigued, questions if Yuri is also good with king hawks, and Suzuya replies that he seems to handle them quite well too. She adds that Yuri can read, write, and is proficient with Toki. Gok expresses surprise at Yuri's versatility, especially with Toki. Toki is a board game, kind of like Chinese Lujianqi. What makes it unique is that there are only a few ways to cross the river in the middle. Luke really liked playing this game, so Yuri had to play it with him. Surprisingly, in just a month, Yuri got even better at it than his dad. Excitedly, Gok suggests playing a game to pass the time before the ceremony, catching Yuri off guard. Nervous about playing, suddenly Yuri is unsure. Suzuya tries to intervene, suggesting it might be impolite, but Gok insists they play. With no other option, Suzuya reluctantly agrees, leaving Yuri to face the game. Once inside, Yuri and Gok sit down to play Toki. Yuri admires the beautiful game board, and Gok remarks that Yuri probably has a lovely board at home too. Yuri reassures Gok that he makes quick moves, so the game won't take up too much of his time. Gok smiles and says they don't need a timer. He then asks Yuri to start the game. They play for a while and Yuri almost wins but narrowly loses. Feeling a bit sad, Yuri admits he needs more experience. Gok cheers him up, saying it was a good game and well planned. Gok suggests playing another round since they finished early, and Yuri happily agrees. Yuri seems to be in an empty classroom, but wait, there's someone at the front of the classroom. For some strange reason, he feels nostalgic. The strange man has his head bowed, and talks about how his father was fired. He asks Yuri if he hasn't heard anything about it. Yuri notices there's a ringing smartphone in his hand, and the caller asks him what Yahata has told him and if he happens to be in tears. Yuri replies that nothing like that has happened so far, but he's still curious about the situation at hand. Yahata's parents worked in his father's company. Yuri wouldn't consider him a close friend. It seems there's a controversy involving stolen goods, and Yuri's father accusing an old employee. The old employee then got close to a divorced woman and manipulated her into receiving retired benefits. Then there's talk about his father not being a decent parent or manager, and suddenly there's a strange man in a suit and shades holding a phone to his ear and standing right in front of Yuri. The stranger then pushes Yuri so he's drowning in a pile of iron and nails. And honestly, it's a relief when Yuri jolts out of bed, sweating, signifying the previous scene was all a weird dream. He then prompts himself to write the dream down in his diary as they could be memories. It felt too real for a dream, and Yuri recalls Yahata from the dream, who announced he would become a doctor, but it seems that the ambition never came to pass. To make things more creepy and confusing, Yuri receives a knock at the door at a rather odd hour. The individual identifies themselves as Shun, a retainer from the whole family. On hearing that, Yuri tells the retainer to hold on, while he goes to wake his father to get the door open. Luke sets a fire to warm Shun, as Shun was out in the cold and possibly has frostbite. Luke checks his hands and feet to confirm, and when he's satisfied with the result, gives Shun the clear. The hospitality is top-notch, as Yuri has also brought a tray of food for the guests to have. Shun eats rather hungrily because he hasn't had anything to eat all day, and has been out in the cold. He has come bearing bad news. Lord Gok is dead, killed in action. Lord Gok was riding on the eagle Luke gave to him, but was ultimately caught up in the king's eagle attack. Shun let them know that Gok fought bravely to the very end. Yuri, who is there when Shun breaks the news, is in a state of shock. To think the uncle he met only a few days ago is now dead. What's worse is no corpse was found. Luke is visibly upset on hearing the news. His wife sinks to her knees and cries when she hears it too. At some point, while still on her knees, she hugs Yuri while she cries. Shun uses the opportunity to invite Luke to the family meeting, which Luke promises to attend. Luke offers Shun a room to sleep for the night and a drink, as what they'll prepare for next is a funeral for his brother. The family arrives at the Ho family's main house. At the dining table, Luke is handed a list of all the people to be present at the meeting. He immediately notices that Sir Lasun's name is not on the list. His name isn't there because Sir Lasun had refused to participate in the King's Eagle attack, so his family was removed from the list. He is now labeled a coward and not worthy to be called a knight. Lasun Ek is the head of a powerful branch of the Ek family. It's a splendid family entrusted with a large frontier city and one of the most powerful vassals in the country. So it is strange that he refused participation and is now not invited to the meeting. Luke reveals to his son that he doesn't have much of a role at the meeting. Yuri asks if this is because Lasun is his uncle's brother, so he is first in line for the head. Luke explains that no one can become the head of the whole family unless they have the title of Head of Knights. The world also won't recognize you as the leader of an army. Luke's father didn't get the title because he dropped out of knight school. Yuri then asks what is a King's Eagle attack. It's a strategy to attack the general from the air and attack the enemy's base on the ground at the same time. At dawn, a large number of troops surprise the enemy general in his tent. There is no guarantee that the enemy general will even be there. Even so, they risk their lives to come and rush in with a force that crushes the enemy forces. If the enemy's general dies, then mission accomplished. But if he doesn't, then they need to basically get closer and make sure they come out victorious with the enemy general's head. Getting closer is a desperate tactic after the first attack has already failed, because at this point the king's troops would be generally outnumbered. To Yuri it sounds like a suicide mission. He asks his father if he will have to participate in such missions when he becomes a heavenly knight. Luke tells him becoming a heavenly knight doesn't mean he'll be forced to participate in the mission. It's something knights willingly do. But there is more prestige when knights participate as it serves as an honor. While father and son discuss, they are notified that the meeting has commenced. Yuri wishes his father luck, but his father clarifies that he will also be attending the meeting. Yuri's name is on the list. They are led to a room with 6 other men. The Ho's family tradition is to not have the eldest in the family as head, so Yuri is not accustomed to seeing so many elderly people at the table of meeting. It's also surprising to know that his father's seat in the meeting is the one for the head of the Ho family. Gok's widow and Luke's sister-in-law is also present at the meeting, and she will be the one addressing the attendance. She addresses the death of her husband, who is the captain of the expedition of the Kilina Kingdom. The surviving members must now quickly think of measures for the future. Gok left a will, and in his will he appointed Luck as the head of the Ho family. Luck is not happy to hear this and objects. His sister-in-law tells him he doesn't have to take up the role. Once Yuri graduates from Knight's Academy, he will inherit the position. The idea of adding Yuri to the mix does far from pacify Luke. He doesn't want to be head of the house, and he doesn't want Yuri to be used as insurance. In his opinion, there are more capable people to be head. One of the members of the meeting also points out that Luke doesn't have the title of knight. Gok's widow tells the member that it's no cause for concern. She has already spoken to the queen concerning this matter. She has gotten special permission from Her Majesty stating the head of the family doesn't have to be a knight. Also prepared are Luke's credit records and a letter of issue of recognition. All Luke has to do is complete the formalities and he will get the title. The Ho's family territory is the farthest from the kingdom of Kilina, which is a battlefield right now. It has a very warm and humid climate, and the land is fertile and reproductive. In return for this benefit, the Ho family have acted as reinforcement against the Kurin's invasion for generations. The repeated battles have, however, left the Ho army with a diminished strength and maintenance. Yuri now understands why the meeting has mostly elderly people. There is no tradition in the Ho family that gives the eldest the head title, so it automatically means the young ones get the title and get sent to war where they die. This makes for fewer young ones in the family because of so many untimely deaths. When it comes to the Shaltians, they have a unique system where their government and political affairs are run by women, and the military forces are run by men. It's been the Queen's decision to send out members of the whole family as reinforcement for war. This preserves the military forces of other families to work for and protect the capital. Luke stands his grounds against the turn of events. He doesn't want his son forced into something so big at a young age, nor does he want any title for himself. Siam's mother announces that Siam will marry someone who's suitable and a patriarch, so it's basically a loss if after finishing Knight's Academy, Yuri is unable to fit into that role. Luke asks for time to process this huge dump of information. Yuri, on the other hand, tries to read his father's mind and the room at large. Will his father leave him in hopes that him and Siam develop feelings for one another ahead of their inevitable marriage? Is such a marriage just decided by his father's consent, or do the other elders have a say? The meeting is interrupted by someone with a grudge. He wasn't called for the meeting and is raging that the meeting would hold without his permission. He is none other than Ek Lassoon, the man who refused to participate in the king's eagle attack and lost his rights to the meeting. He was a strong candidate for the position young Yuri now possibly holds. Ek directs his anger to Satsuki Ho, Gok's widow, who isn't afraid to address the fact that he chose to abandon his duties in the first place. Ek continues to rage, and oh, he's raging now, but wait till he discovers what's written in Gok's will. He snatches the will from one of the elders and proclaims it a fake, saying that Satsuki has schemed it. It's a bold claim to make, but he reveals the real will to prove his stance. In this newly presented will that Ek has, Gok appoints Ek as the new head of the whole family. Now it's a matter of she said, he said, who has the real will? It's Satsuki's turn to rage. To think that the Ek family would go this far. She reminds him that numerous reports came to the family of how Lassoon Ek fled the scene at Gok's unfortunate death. Lassoon Ek counters that he wasn't fleeing. He was acting on Gok's instructions to bring back the real will to the Ho family. Satsuki's stance is that her will was brought by the Rosk family, who are trusted. Ek counters it still doesn't mean her will is the real deal. She could have deceived or connived the Rosk family for all they know. Yuri can see a high probability of Lassoon's will being fake, but to him it doesn't change the fact that his aunt is someone with strong motives as well. Satsuki hasn't been able to provide concrete proof to discredit Lassoon, and Lassoon has been rather convincing in his counters. There's also no technology in this world to prove who has the fake will, but from all indications, Lassoon has the upper hand. He's a knight and Luke isn't. Satsuki is just Gok's wife. Yuri can easily see the elders picking Lassoon's side. Yuri whispers to his father about needing to use the restroom. For his sake, the meeting is put on break to return in half an hour. Once Luke and his son are in the clear, Yuri tells him how his toilet break was just a ruse to get his father away so he could speak to him privately. When they're alone, he asks his father if he really wants the whole head of Ho title. Luke concedes that it all depends on the results of the election. He doesn't want to, but if it's in his brother's will, then he doesn't have much of a choice. He's also positive his brother must have had good reason for putting him in his will. Yuri lets his father know he noticed a difference in writing in the two wills presented. One of them is obviously a fake, so he advises his father to announce the disparity so the election won't hold. Yuri fears that things could turn ugly pretty soon, with blood on someone's hand if they lose the battle. Luke assures Yuri things won't get that far. If there's so much as an emergency, he'll find a way to handle it. Satsuki finds them in the room and isn't happy about it, because that's not the restroom after all. She nags them both about having a better resolve to confront the elders with. Yuri takes the opportunity to speak up. He has something to tell his aunt. In another scene, we see Yuri walk up to the guards stationed at Lassoon's room. Yuri asks them to let him see Lassoon as he's been sent by his father, Luke. One of the guards who recognizes Luke's name tells the young boy that Lassoon is currently not in. Yuri insists that the message he has to deliver is of utmost importance, and he would like to wait for Lassoon in his room if possible. The guard agrees. Yuri can wait in the room while he supervises. While there, the guard reminisces about his days in the Knights Academy, stating he wouldn't mind going back. The conversation piques Yuri's curiosity, as it's somewhere he would be attending quite soon. Lassoon returns and questions Yuri's presence. Yuri relays he has a message from his father. It's about the secret of the will his aunt Satsuki currently has in her possession. The last thing Yuri remembers from his previous life is trying to save a drowning girl. He has no regrets leaving that world behind him. There's a stronger desire to fight for this current life he has. Right now, there's a solid reason to do his best and protect all that he has. Two wills, one is a fake. The losing team faces a chance of execution. There's a lot to fight for and protect. Yuri has come to Lassoon with a supposed secret of Aunt Satsuki's will. Lassoon first asks the young boy why Luke, his father, hasn't come himself. Yuri's replies that his father's under surveillance by soldiers. Lassoon then gives him a listening ear to proceed. Yuri goes on to demonstrate how the will from Aunt Satsuki was written on the same parchment of paper as the one he has with him. He sets the paper against flame to try and reveal a symbol on the paper, but it's too faint, and Lassoon is losing his patience. He snatches the paper from Yuri and reads the message on it himself. It tells him Satsuki plans to use Sarn's will as a testament, and Luke would like the same treatment as before when Lassoon wins. It tells him to fold the side of the paper for more details. Lassoon asks why Luke would give him the upper hand, and Yuri explains that him and his father don't want the title, and would just like to return to their drama-free lives as farmers. Yuri stole a copy of the documents from Aunt Satsuki, and in exchange for them, if Lassoon wins the election, he would have to treat them the same way he's always treated them. Lassoon agrees and Yuri gets what he wants. Even if Lassoon wins the election, the safety of his family is secured. When Yuri leaves Lassoon's room, he hopes he's given a good performance, acting as ignorant and as silly as a little child would. The truth is, he acted on his own accord. Confirming his father's zeal for simplistic life, he pushed to secure so without letting his father know. He then tries to hurry to bed, but his father catches on to him, asking where he's been. Yuri lies, saying he was at the library reading, but Luke easily discredits the lie. Yuri confesses to a generic form of the truth, and his father pleads with him to just be a child, basically. It's his duty as the father to protect, and Yuri has to remember that he's his parents' priority. To that effect, Luke makes Yuri promise to stop going around doing dangerous things. The meeting soon resumes. Satsuki once again addresses the room. She states that no matter the outcome of the meeting, it is one that will shape the future of the household, so they must do their best to choose the right outcome. On their agenda is to verify the two wills to confirm the real one. Satsuki reveals to everyone's shock that there's a way to know each document's authenticity. It's a measure the whole family have put in place for generations. When placed against fire, the real document will reveal the family crest at the back of the paper. The real will should have this crest. Just like the message said, Satsuki presents Sarn's will. Sarn is Gok's father, and the document couldn't be used as testament earlier because it was buried in the archives. Seeing an unfazed Lasune makes Satsuki falter for a second. He sits smugly as he tells Satsuki they can go ahead and compare both documents. To ensure the fairness of the task, the head chief is told to carry out the task. Lasune and Satsuki's wills are placed side by side to Sarn's. The chief plans to heat an iron rod and take it close to the paper, starting with Sarn's. Lasune's will is revealed as the counterfeit. After Yuri visited Lasune sent a letter via bird to the forgers and had them recreate a replica of the real will using the parchment Yuri left with him. Once the authenticity of the will is established, there's no way Lasune can be considered suitable for the head of the family. Realizing he's been fooled, Lasune's anger flares and he openly rages at Yuri. This in turn makes Yuri's father question just what Yuri has been up to. Aunt Satsuki was in on it. She's the one who helped Yuri out with a look-alike paper and an impression of the parchment for Yuri to copy. Lasune changes tactics and announces his will is not the fake. If it's testing as a counterfeit, then it's because someone must have broken in and stolen the original from him, leaving him with a counterfeit. Yuri challenges this new story. If he suspected foul play beforehand, he should have mentioned it before the test was carried out. Yet he remained confident like nothing was wrong. Knowing the jig is up, Lasune swears he won't forgive the little brat, nor let him get away with the actions. Lasune's real intentions were to see Gok die, and when he did, he fled the scene and coined the plan to be head of the family before he could be exiled. Yuri did what he thought was best. If Lasune became head, then the family would likely crumble under his reign. The title is better off in his father's hands, no matter the burden. The election begins on the account that Lasune has nothing more to say for himself, and just like that, Satsuki announces Luke as Gok's successor. He is now to be the 28th head of the whole family. As for Lasune, he is to be arrested. But he doesn't plan to leave peacefully or without a fight. He pulls out a knife and slices the neck of the guard nearest to him. His main target is Yuri, who he plans to kill. Angered by the excellence of Yuri's trickery and the audacity he used to carry the plan out, Lasune refuses to go down in defeat without making the brat that crossed him pay. He skillfully takes out the guards present in the room who were instructed to seize him for treachery. The elderly participants at the meeting try their best to escape with their lives, avoiding the now rampaging beast that Lasune has become. They try to call for more guards to stop Lasune in his tracks, but the cowardly man was determined to take Yuri's life, so determined that he had the courage to enact his revenge there and then. As promised, Luke, Yuri's father, now head of the whole clan, asks Satsuki to move to a safer area and take Yuri with her, living up to the promise he told his son earlier. Out to protect his son, after reminding and assuring the boy that he would protect him if anything happens, he assumes a defensive stance, waiting for Lasune to attack. The stance helps him to exchange attacks with his armed opponent, and he tries to subdue the hand the weapon is in. After the first exchange, Lasune notices Luke's intentions, and sees the danger of continuing thoughtless and rapid attacks with the knife he possesses. Aware of the situation, Lasune realizes he could not continue recklessly by entering where he could easily slash with the knife. He tries a couple more attacks, cautiously trying to get into a convenient attack range where he can at least land a slash, but Luke would not let him. Ridden with pride, Lasune refuses to seek his reasoning as he believes that there's no way a farmer who hasn't been to war for some time would give him a tough time. So he attacks rashly, creating an opening for Luke to subdue him and the hand holding the weapon. He secures the weapon and proceeds to clutch his neck in an arm lock. This successfully puts Lasune to sleep while guards move in to secure the traitor's unconscious body. Yuri, acknowledging his father's strength along with everyone present, heads over to meet his father, who comforts him almost immediately, asking if Yuri was scared during the fight. Satsuki also commends Luke on his strength as she is surprised to see that he's still got his grits in the bag, expecting nothing less from a competitor in the Knights Academy, even if it was a number of years back. Later at dinner, what remains of the whole family at the main household sit to discuss among themselves. This includes just 4 people: Satsuki, the widow of the late clan head and Luke's elder brother, The daughter Yuri encountered earlier, Siam, Luke, and Yuri. While they wine and dine, Yuri could not help but wonder, or rather notice, the change in how he views things. Before this new life, he never cared about losing even his own life, but now he fears what would happen if the attack went south, if his father were to be taken down and stabbed to death. In summary, he wonders what would have happened if his father lost and died. As would a father, Luke notices Yuri's gloomy countenance, and once again comforts him, advising that he should not overdo the thinking and wondering. The father encourages him to eat and enjoy the food, accompanying the taste with a sip at a time, also promising that he would get better after eating. Satsuki, with the aim of lightening the mood and bringing up conversation, asks Luke if he really hates conflicts, given that he still possesses the fighting and war skills he had learned 18 years ago. Luke confirms his displeasure for conflicts, explaining that it's his reason for leaving the path of knighthood, dropping out of the academy and starting a new life as a farmer. Satsuki decides to steer the course of the conversation to an area that gives her closure. She probes Luke, asking if he plans to send Yuri to the Knights Academy. She reminds Luke that, as she mentioned in the meeting, the position of head of clan does not require or demand Luke to have the title of knight. She also added that he could still live his new life on the farm if Yuri is to take over after finishing from the Knights Academy. Luke asks if Satsuki will take up the responsibility of handling matters of the clan while he is away on the farm. Since it would not be accepted as appropriate for a widow of the former clan head to deal with matters of the clan, they agree to keep the arrangement out of public eye. And Satsuki assures Luke that if any dangerous person shows up, she would be sure to write him a note. With this, all matters of leadership are finalized, and new topics could begin to spring up. Something quite unexpected happens next. As Yuri finishes up the food, his cousin, who was rude when they first met but now holds him in a dear and high regard, summons up courage and asks him to accompany her to look at the stars. Stunned by how random and sudden the request is, Yuri asks to confirm if she meant for them to see it right then. She asks her mother if she could go, and Satsuki agrees, adding a condition that the girl finishes her meal first. Yuri also asks his father if he could go with her, to which his father, who is wearing a mischievous and teasing face, agrees wholeheartedly, with no objections at all. After gaining permission from both their parents, the duo are instructed to not go outside of the mansion, and in accordance to that instruction, they explore and navigate uncommon areas of the mansion. As she drags Yuri to her secret and special place, and according to her, this place is a beautiful place to look at the stars. They climb to a balcony on the roof which is directly under the sky, and she introduces it as her secret hiding place, adding that she comes there anytime she faces a hard time. Yuri admits his ignorance of the stars and sky structure of this world, but his view is about to change when she educates and tells him about the stars, constellations, and their names. The stars are so closely packed together that they resemble the Milky Way, which brought the question to Yuri's mind: do other worlds have galaxies as well? Deep in thought, he didn't pay much attention to what she was explaining until she drew his attention. She informs him that the name of the third star that revolves around a particular star is called Mira. She continues, explaining that there are currently 5 stars that move in the sky like that, moving differently compared to the other stars. Using information from his past life, to Yuri, Mira fits the description of a natural satellite, and from what he had heard, people possibly understand the universe in terms of celestial motion. Progressing to the other facts, she asks if he's familiar with constellations, and unsure that the previous information he has of the world would tally with his present world, he admits to having little knowledge, but still eggs her on to share her knowledge with him, adding that he is most interested in the formation of the 5 stars. With glee, she continues her explanation, explaining that there are 2 types of constellations in the world: the summer and winter constellations, indicating that the one in the sky presently is the winter constellation. She points out the different stars that make up the winter, the cow, the lyra, the cat, and ladle constellations. During the course of the lecture, Yuri found it hard understanding anything, but something did catch his attention. The constellation she referred to as the constellation of the ladle looks exactly like something he was familiar with: the Big Dipper. He also notices that the constellation of the cow looks like another familiar one, the Orion constellation. This raises a lot of questions in Yuri's mind, like if it's possible for stars to look the same in a different world, just like they did on Earth. In the first place, starlight is the light from stars and galaxies, and the afterglow of supernova explosions that reaches the Earth's surface and is visible. Even though the position of each star is different, there's no way that the star should look the same as Earth by chance. Normally, there would be a different shape of the universe in another world. He tried to reason out feasible theories and explanations for why these similarities exist. With reason to investigate, he excuses himself from her presence, giving the excuse of having a task to do. She thought her explanations were boring him out. Yuri explains to her that he likes her explanation, and it would be a great discovery once he's able to confirm what he's thinking. Eager to hear this discovery, she lets him leave after promising he would share the great discovery with her. Curious, he heads into his aunt's room. That is, after politely asking for her permission to enter, and he asks her if there are any maps available in the house. Though it was a sudden request, she realizes that Yuri probably never had any access to maps at his father's house, being away from the main household. Yuri asks to see the biggest map available in the house, because the bigger the map, the more information it would have. Satsuki takes him to the mansion's treasure room, where the biggest map lies, the map of the late Great Empire, even though it is just a copy of the original. Yuri knew that this copy would suffice as it would show the range of the country. The map was made by the Great Shantia Empire, which perished 900 years ago, but thrived in excellent civil engineering and had a vast territory, including the present kingdom of Shalta. The map would definitely be in good or at least readable condition, as the foundations of royal capital are said to be relics of the era, proving the prowess in craft and engineering. On his first glance of the map, he is astounded when his aunt points out the kingdom's location on the map. To him, based on his previous knowledge of Earth, the kingdom resembles the Scandinavian peninsula of the Eurasian continent on Earth. Even though the shape seems a little irregular, it is a terrain he knows of. And as far as the borderline is concerned, the Shantia Empire seems to have spread its rule over a territory spanning from the rural mountains in the east, Scandinavia in the west, Ukraine in the south, to just before Baku in Azerbaijan. He thought that this is probably due to the fact that the capital Shantinian is located on the Crimean Peninsula, and on the map the Black Sea's coastline is drawn very well compared to the other frontiers. Drawing from proof and the similarities he has found, he deduces that this world he is on is Earth. Satsuki notices that on the map their country isn't drawn well compared to a smaller map on the table. Going through the map, he gets to see a detailed representation of his nearby surroundings, and he identifies places he's familiar with on the map. As he peruses the map, Satsuki couldn't help but remember him meeting her and coming up with a plan to effectively take care of Lasune before the final election of clan head. From the scheming he worked up to how deeply her husband trusts him, from just playing a number of games, she can't ignore that Yuri isn't any ordinary child, and wonders what her husband might have seen in him, enough to invite Yuri to become his son-in-law. Lost in her thoughts, Yuri calls her back to consciousness and thanks her for letting him study the maps. Since they were done, she offered to escort him to his room. While still wondering how to thank him, Lasune is tied up in prison with no power to act in any harmful way. As he bids her goodnight and heads into his room, she wonders what Gok saw in the boy to trust him so much. The lifestyle of being the son of the clan head and living with the main household will have to take some getting used to for both father and son. Yuri struggles with getting used to the way he's addressed around the house by the staff and servants of the house. He also has to get used to people doing things for him. As he prepares to meet a certain Master Soim at the dojo, he ponders on the differences with his daily life. It has been 3 years now since Luke took over, and he's a 10-year-old who has to adapt into a hectic lifestyle in a new environment. Basically, he has to get used to living in a very large room, being greeted by those who work in the mansion, and having someone constantly keep tabs on his whereabouts. His life has completely changed from when he lived as a farmer, and not just his, but his father's. Luke has been knee-deep in work, from administrative work to training soldiers. He is busy from morning till night inspecting the work and territory he left for his vassals to handle. Same applies for his son, with occasional visits here and there. Yuri has been left to play his role with as much guidance and instruction as needed. The only person who hasn't changed much is his mother. She is still the same as ever, even after moving into the main household. On arriving at the dojo, he's lucky to evade an ongoing bout. Well, if we're being precise, the bout was coming to an end. The master, Soim Hao, commends his reflexes and asks him to continue in that pace as they begin the practice duel. For some time, they exchange attacks, but it isn't long before Master Soim confirms the bulk he has to learn. With Yuri worn out, Master Soim wonders if this is exactly how he intends to enter the Knights Academy. Master Soim Hao is one of the knights who came back from his retirement, and has been instructed by Satsuki personally to be Yuri's martial arts instructor. Aged 90, he has returned from many wars, but the same cannot be said for his son and grandson, as they were killed in war. With no strength to handle affairs, he left the management of his territory to his trusted vassals, since he has grown too old. Despite his age, he derives great pleasure from tutoring Yuri, and getting to train with a disciple like him. After giving advice as they proceed in the various duels, Yuri understands that he is a capable instructor, and would entrust his growth in strength and skill to this master. For some reason, it seems he would be enjoying his martial arts lessons. The same, however, cannot be said for the language lessons he had to take from Satsuki. He finds learning the ancient language of the Great Shantia Empire, the ancient Shan language, boring, and struggles with sleep and concentration during class. Satsuki scolds him from time to time, wondering why he is so bad at the classics when all it takes is rote memorization like history. The ancient Shan language is an old language from the Shantia Empire, where the verbs change depending on the object. So there are an incredible number of conjugations, and it seems that people have to memorize it all. It is also solely a written language, not a spoken one. And she also believes that a person can't be referred to as educated if they can't understand the language. For Yuri, the entirety of the lecture is penance, and when he's done for today, he heads over to Siam's room for a change of pace. There, he finds her engrossed in something he had taught her, the theory of Kepler's laws. She went on and on in excitement, showing how thrilled she is and how the laws differ from the geocentric model of the solar system this world ran on. Seeing her ramble on about this surprises him, as he wasn't so happy when he was learning the laws in his past life. With this, he realizes that he needs to take her outside, away from the texts, so she has some actual fun. As they wander the surroundings, admiring how well the winter is settling, he gives explanations for some certain natural happenings. She was ignorant of them, but still recognizes that his cousin is an intelligent woman. Back at the castle for dinner, we see Luke tired out from his duties as clan head, and during the course of dinner he makes mention of a certain sickness terrorizing the people, the floating pox disease. Having come across the sickness and its severity while studying one of the books in the library, he fears his determination to do something about it, which would involve associating with the danger of getting infected. He objects his father's views and pleads that Luke should leave the sickness alone. When Luke assures him of safety, in a final bid to dissuade his father from risking his life, he demands to accompany Luke. While Satsuki advises Yuri against accompanying his father, Luke agrees to take him along, on the condition that he does what Luke instructs him to do. Getting to the village, they meet the healthy and uninfected villagers. But before they mingle, Yuri forces his father to take protective measures and cover his nose with clothing, so as to avoid contamination. Entering the village, they both get to hear the villagers lament on how helpless they are, since all they were experienced in is treating injuries, not epidemics. Since the people in this world have no idea of pathogens and viruses, they believed the sickness came as a wrath from the gods, and the only viable solution is to pray. As they were led to the area where the infected were quarantined, the villagers inform Luke of how they take care of the infected family members. On entering the house, Yuri, who is familiar with the disease and its horrors, is terrified that the sickness has gotten to a very dangerous state, the worst possible situation. He urges his father that they leave the house immediately without touching anything. Luke assumes Yuri is scared and driven by fear, wanting to go home. That was not the case. Yuri is familiar with the disease after seeing it firsthand. The disease is smallpox. He explains the disease is very easily contractable, and the best course of action is to leave the village at once, so as to not spread it to other parts. In the heat of the moment, Yuri makes a selfish statement implying that it's better for the infected to die off than to risk infecting the main household and the entire country at large. The villagers did not take the words with the best spirit, as they desperately sought for help for their family members. Seeing that his father is hell-bent on saving the villagers, he tries one last time to get his father's attention, because right now all the adults see him as a small, scared child that is being selfish. After successfully getting his father's attention along with the villagers, he introduces a foreign idea, one he is acquainted with from his previous life on Earth: simple vaccination. After explaining how vaccinations work and the procedures that might successfully cure the sickness, his father decided to put faith in him and didn't regret it. Due to Yuri's idea, the village got vaccinated and people weren't getting infected anymore. Additionally, the infected were getting better. After some months, with all this chaos behind, a new chapter of Yuri's life is about to unravel, as his parents accompany him to the royal capital, Shibuyaku, where the entrance ceremony for freshmen at the Knights Academy is held. Shy that his parents were with him, they assure him that it's normal for parents to be present, as they usher him into his first day at the Knights Academy. As Yuri walks into the Knights Academy halls, he recalls his father explaining that there are two parts to the facility. It's not just an academy, there's also a reformatory. Together, they make up an institution. Simply put, the Knights Academy is for boys and girls go to the reformatory. Curious, Yuri asks his father what they taught in the reformatory and if the academy was for training knights. Luke explained that in the reformatory, they learn the basic knowledge needed to become a bureaucrat. That's why most people in the reformatory are witches. Luke clarified that witches is just a term for civil servants who serve the royal family. The reformatory acts as a training place for them to improve their skills. Many women from witch families go to the reformatory, but not many like Satsuki come from knight families to learn as part of their education as ladies. On the flip side, the Knights Academy focuses on teaching military skills to knights. Achieving knighthood is like getting a graduation certificate from the school. Without this certificate, individuals don't have a role in leading others in wars. Typically, boys from knight families enroll in the Knights Academy. However, there are a few cases of girls from witch families attending too. These ladies are promised a path to becoming officers in the Royal Guard or the Royal Army. Luke mentioned that Yuri has the freedom to shape his own path at the Knights Academy. If there's something he doesn't like, it's okay to leave. Luke assured him that he and Suzuya would always support whatever decision he made. Feeling confident from tough training with Soim, Yuri walks with Luke through the halls. However, he notices some people looking and whispering, which initially puzzles him. Then he remembers his father, the current head of the Ho family, hasn't held the title of knighthood for a long time. This realization may have sparked rumors about him. Yuri decides to ignore them. He, along with his parents, goes to the receptionist lady and gives her a letter with his details. She tells Luke and Suzuya to wait in the parents' room, while she guides only Yuri. As Yuri goes, his parents cheer him on. The lady leads Yuri to the test halls, where he's surprised to find the test already underway. Some people are finishing and leaving. He worries about the possibility of leaked questions. Yuri also observes there's no apparent time limit and wonders why the tests didn't all start at the same time. The lady guides Yuri to an empty seat and hands him his test scripts. The lady gives Yuri a wooden board with questions on it. Yuri is surprised by this unusual method, wondering if they're using wood to save parchment. As he reads the questions, he's shocked to find them incredibly simple, making him question the difficulty of Miss Satsuki's lectures over the past 3 years. Despite this, Yuri quickly answers all of the questions. When he submits his answers, the examiner checks them and instructs the lady to lead him to the room for perfect scores. Feeling puzzled about what's going on, Yuri wonders if he needs to go for an interview. The examiner clarifies that the earlier test was just to see if he's skilled or not, and the test he's about to take is the real deal, happening in a different room. Yuri notices the absence of elementary schools in the country has left children with minimal academic knowledge. Some, like him, have learned the ancient Shan language, while others may have been raised to be free-spirited, knowing they would study at the academy. The purpose of the test was simply to categorize the children into groups, which was why parchment wasn't used, instead opting for wooden boards. Upon entering the next hall for the actual tests, Yuri notices a decrease in the number of students, indicating that many couldn't achieve a perfect score. While waiting for the tests to commence, he spots a girl with blonde hair entering and sitting beside another candidate. Yuri finds her familiar, likely due to her hair resembling that of Princess Carol, whom he met in his younger days. He wonders if this girl is indeed Princess Carol. As the test begins, the examiner introduces an hourglass, informing the students that they have until it runs out. Looking at the questions, Yuri realizes they are much more challenging than what a typical 10-year-old could solve. Even for him, it would take a considerable amount of time to finish. Furthermore, he notices there are still no questions related to the ancient Shan language. Yuri took nearly half the time in the hourglass before deciding to submit, making him the first candidate to do so. The examiner cautions him, mentioning he still has plenty of time, and submitting means he can't return to the test. Yuri, confident in his efforts, doesn't mind and submits. As he exits, the blonde girl displays annoyance at how quickly Yuri finishes. In the waiting room, Luke and Sir Gala are arm wrestling. Yuri's sudden appearance distracts Luke and Gala capitalizes on it, winning the match. Gala remarks that it's been a while since he saw Yuri. Yuri recalls their last meeting at the royal capital, impressing Gala with his memory. Gala asks Yuri about the test, and Yuri admits he can't guarantee a perfect score, but did his best. Gala suggests that Yuri might meet his son someday, and if they do, they should get along. Curious, Yuri asks for Gala's son's name, and Gala reveals it's Dola Godwin, describing him as a bit mischievous. This makes Yuri nervous, imagining a mischievous boy with his father's strength. After their chat, they say their goodbyes. The next day, Yuri and his parents head to the graduation ceremony. Yuri feels sad knowing he won't see his family for a while. Suzuya is emotional too, but Yuri reassures her that he'll visit regularly once he's an expert in eagle riding. Understanding his parents' love, Yuri promises himself not to embarrass them. Little did he know that a few hours later he would find himself getting slapped by a girl. Yuri and his parents arrive at the ceremony, where a woman warmly greets them. She whispers something to Luke, and suddenly Luke's expression changes to one of surprise. Luke then calmly instructs Yuri to go with the lady, reassuring him that everything will be okay. Yuri is guided to a separate room, feeling nervous as he enters the spacious area. In the room he finds 3 people: an elderly man, an elderly woman, and Princess Carol. The elderly woman kindly invites him to take a seat, and he does so. She introduces herself as Isabeau Marmoset, the director of the reformatory, and the elderly man introduces himself as Revelo Rube, the director of the Knights Academy. Yuri knows that Marmoset and Rube are well-known family names, with Marmoset being among the 7 great witch families, and Rube being among the 5 great general families. Isabeau then surprises Yuri by revealing that they will represent the student body by taking an oath in front of Her Majesty. This shocks Yuri because he never imagined being the top student, and he didn't expect to have to memorize anything. Perplexed, he questions why Carol is present if he's the top student. Revelo clarifies that Yuri will take an oath as the top seat of the Knights Academy, while Carol will do the same for the reformatory. The directors instruct both students to practice their oath speeches in another room. The instructor hands Yuri the script, asking him to memorize it. However, the lines are so long that even Yuri finds it challenging to remember them. On the contrary, Carol glances at the script for a few minutes and confidently tells the instructor that she has memorized her lines. Yuri is surprised by how quick she is. Carol, on the other hand, looks at him with a smug expression on her face. Yuri realizes that memorizing that line isn't something anyone can do just an hour before the ceremony. After practicing for a while, they leave the room, and Yuri looks really tired and frustrated. Carol teases him, saying he's not much of a big deal. Yuri then asks why she took both the Knight's exam and the Reformatory's exam. To his surprise, she reveals she plans to graduate from both the Knight Academy and the Reformatory simultaneously, which is why she took both exams. Yuri admits that he didn't even know that was possible, and he tells her that he's not interested anyway, and if he could, he wouldn't be there. He admits that had he known it would turn out like this, he would have given her the top spot. Before Yuri can say more, Carol unexpectedly slaps him, questioning his future ambitions with anger, and then storms off upset. As the ceremony is about to start, Yuri is in his seat, thinking about how his dad would tease him if he found out he got slapped. The boy next to him strikes up a conversation. Introducing himself as Miyato Gudanviel, he asks Yuri about his cheeks. Yuri tells a lie, saying he fell and accidentally touched a girl's butt. They continue chatting until the queen calls the top students to take their oath. Yuri and Carol step forward, and Luke and Suzuya watch their son beaming with pride. Yuri stands in front of the queen, confidently delivering his oath. However, when it's Carol's turn, she starts well, but begins to stutter and shake. That's when Yuri realizes Carol has forgotten all of her lines. Yuri observes Carol struggling with her lines, surprised by how quickly she forgot them. It's ironic because earlier she confidently claimed to have memorized everything, and even acted smug and superior to him. Now, tears well up in Carol's eyes and Yuri starts feeling sorry for her. Thankfully, despite only glancing at a few of her lines, he knows the ones she's struggling with and helps her by whispering them to her. With his help, she recalls all of her lines and manages to complete her oath. Once the speech is done, they proceed to the next round, kissing the hands of the queen. After completing this segment, Yuri returns to his seat. Miyato praises his performance, commending it as truly dignified. Miyato suggests that Yuri join him for some food if he's free at the moment. Yuri appreciates the offer but explains he's already committed to meeting his parents since he won't be able to see them later. Suddenly, Carol appears and pulls Yuri by the arm, insisting that he has to come with her right away. Yuri asks her to wait so he can at least say goodbye to Miyato, as it would be impolite to leave abruptly. Carol realizes this is true, and gives Yuri a moment to bid farewell. Yuri says his goodbyes to Miyato, telling him to take care, and Miyato responds, expressing the same sentiment for Yuri's well-being in the future. Carol takes Yuri to an empty room and locks the door. Yuri is about to ask her what she wants to talk about when he suddenly hears her sobbing. Concerned, he panics and asks her what's wrong. She explains that she's upset because she tried to compete with him on stage, ended up embarrassing herself, and now feels ashamed. To make matters worse, he had to help her by telling her the lines she had forgotten. It dawns on Yuri that Carol was competing with him all along, pretending to memorize lines quickly, and that's why she was unhappy when he submitted answers first during the test. Yuri wonders if she brought him there just to tell him all that, but she explains that she also brought him to express gratitude. She thanks him for saving her. Yuri acknowledges being a bit insensitive before and clarifies he never intended to hurt her pride. She shares that her anger stemmed from not wanting to lose to someone without ambition. Yuri advises Carol that to be a ruler, she should aim for people's loyalty instead of competing with them. In response, Carol insists that a ruler needs strength and intelligence. Yuri suggests it might be better for subjects who are smarter and wiser. Carol dismisses this, expressing her issue is losing to someone insolent like him and fearing becoming obscene like him. Yuri smirks, stating he's not bothered about exams, encouraging her to focus on doing her best for the moment. Carol starts to get really angry, thinking that Yuri is saying he can beat her easily no matter how much she studies. With a smug look on his face, he adds he doesn't want rivalry, so he won't try too hard. This makes Carol even more furious, and she insults him angrily, regretting that she ever thanked him. As she walks away, she declares that she won't lose to someone like him ever again. The next morning at the Ho family villa, Siam feels a bit sad because Yuri is getting ready to leave. Yuri assures her that he'll miss her too, and reminds her that she'll be applying as a reformatory student next year. He wraps up by saying that next time he visits, he'll give her some homework. While she's finding the answers, she can think of it as studying together so she won't feel lonely. Siam smiles brightly and tells him she's looking forward to it. Yuri excitedly begins his journey as a student at the academy, but soon realizes his bags are too heavy. He decides to temporarily stash them under a tree and pick them up later. While thinking about what to do, he meets Miyato and they say hi. Yuri asks Miyato about the dorm procedures, and Miyato kindly offers to show him. Miyato mentions that there is also an option to send luggage in advance, which Yuri wasn't aware of. Miyato lends a hand by helping Yuri carry one of his bags to the dorm. Upon reaching the dorm, Yuri is assigned a room on the second floor. Miyato is happy because his room is also on the same floor. After assisting Yuri with unpacking, Miyato expresses excitement about working together for the next 15 years. As Yuri watches Miyato leave, he thinks that Miyato seems like a good guy, and he believes they'll get along. Closing his room door, Yuri turns around to find a boy with an angry, fierce look staring at him. Turns out that this boy is his roommate. Wondering why the boy looks so upset, Yuri tries to break the silence by introducing himself. However, the boy responds rudely, saying he never asked for any introductions. Yuri, feeling tired of staring back at the boy, decides to put his belongings in the wardrobe. wondering why the boy keeps looking at him even though he doesn't want to talk. Since he was getting along with Miyato, he thought he wouldn't have any problems at the school at all, but this boy is starting to make him doubt that. He chooses to finish unpacking first before exploring the room. He takes out his diaries, which he brought along because they're written in a mysterious language. Leaving them at his parents' house poses a risk of someone reading them, potentially leading to them asking if he's sane or not. However, as he places the diary on the desk, his roommate breaks the silence, asking him who gave him permission to use it. Yuri, a bit annoyed, asks if it's wrong for him to use the available desk, especially when the other two desks are occupied. The roommate insists that Yuri should have asked for permission beforehand. Getting irritated, Yuri asks about the boy's name, curious about why he seems to act with a sense of entitlement. The boy gets really mad, and tells Yuri that just because he's the top student doesn't mean he can do whatever he wants. Yuri suggests they wait until all three room members are there before deciding how to share the table, but the boy firmly refuses, finally introducing himself as Dola Godwin. The mention of the name brings back memories of what Sir Gala told him about his son. Yuri wonders how he's going to spend 15 years with such a person. To put the boy at ease, Yuri mentions that he's acquainted with his father. However, instead of calming down, the boy becomes even angrier. He asks if Yuri believes he's superior just because his father spoke highly of him. Abruptly, the boy swipes away the ink on Yuri's desk, and asserts that the Knight Academy is a place for individuals aspiring to become great knights. He emphasizes that he joined the academy to sharpen his skills and gain the power necessary for becoming a formidable knight against adversaries. According to him, essential tools for battle are a spear, sword, shield, and the ability to wield them. The boy contends that Yuri's presence on stage was solely due to excelling in the test, a feat he refuses to acknowledge. When Dola sees that Yuri remains silent, he attempts to get a reaction by teasing him. He grabs Yuri's diary, questioning why he would have such a thing, since it's typically used for studying. Dola starts hitting the book on Yuri's head multiple times. In a composed manner, Yuri asks Dola to return the book, emphasizing its significance to him. Dola asks whether Yuri thinks he has the authority to give orders. Dola goes a step further by throwing the book on the floor and stomping on it. This simple action is enough to push Yuri over the edge. Yuri questions if Dola is acting like a dog, stating that if words won't affect him, then he'll treat him like a dog, seeing him as a coward who only knows how to bark. Dola, angered, tries to attack Yuri with a punch, but Yuri skillfully tackles him down and follows it up with a kick to the gut. Sitting on top of Dola, Yuri asks him if he really wants to start a fight, and despite Dola's protests, Yuri swiftly lands a punch. Yuri instructs Dola to bark like a dog and answer his question. Yuri then asks one more time if Dola tried to start a fight with him. Dola remains silent, prompting Yuri to punch him on the nose. Yuri continues with a series of punches while explaining that Dola should have expected this consequence, since he had asked Dola to return something important, but Dola ignored the request. Yuri proceeds to choke Dola, questioning if he would be fine with Yuri causing harm. After Dola loses consciousness, Yuri leaves him. However, a knock on the door interrupts the scene, and it's the dormitory manager. The dormitory manager finds Dola unconscious on the ground and quickly comes to help. She asks another student to go to the infirmary and call the doctor. Yuri responds coldly, advising her not to shake Dola too much as he only passed out. When the dorm manager questions Yuri about what happened, he says Dola initiated a fight, and he merely ended it. The dormitory manager presses for more details, but Yuri insists there's nothing more to explain. That's the whole story. The dorm manager expresses doubt that Yuri is considering the consequences of his actions. In response, Yuri sharply tells her to reflect on her own actions. He vaguely describes the incident, mentioning that Dola was the one trying to pick a fight with him. If he had been careless, he could have been the one injured. Yuri mentions that he feels like he should be the one protesting, but the dorm manager insists on taking disciplinary actions on him. She instructs him to go back to his house and wait for further instructions. Yuri quietly grabs his diary, locks it in the locker, and leaves the room with frustration. Miyato follows him and offers to help clean his injured hand. At the well, after tending to Yuri's wounds, he expresses concern about the possibility of being expelled. Miyato reassures him, explaining that as the heir of the whole family, expulsion is unlikely, at least with the circumstances of the fight with another student. Yuri finds Miyato's words comforting, and is grateful to have met someone like him.